Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. What's happening, everybody? I hope everybody's doing great today. I know my day went pretty good today. I had a little bit of a damper on it, but overall my day was great. And that's the thing that what I want to do today in my video is run through that little damper in my day, and I got a story that I remembered because of it, and I want to share that with you guys. And it's just a little story of adversity, and how sometimes things can happen in your day, things can happen in your life, and how to pick up the pieces and keep on moving forward, right? So, but before we get started with today's story and topic, if you would please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer for the addict who still suffers, and for those of you and for those of us who are still in the struggle, and to those things that bound us down. And if you would please, a moment of silence followed by serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. Alrighty, well, let's get started here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this mic down here and get these things up and put these things on because I can't read without these. Okay, so here we go. I just finished this book, and it's called Everyday Dharma by Sunil Gupta, and this is the book right here. And I went to school today, and during I had a test that I had to take, and I walked in confident, bam, bam, bam. Was really really I felt good about it, and overall, test was done. I didn't pass. So, man, it was so deflating to me that I didn't pass, but I was just like, dude, what happened? You know what I mean? I just kept kind of beating myself up about it and thinking, man, this, I was just really, I honestly, to be honest with you, I was sad about it. I was sad that I didn't pass. And it got me into this feeling, all the way home, all that, my feelings were hurt. You know what I mean? And I don't know, it just, I felt disappointed and just, I didn't feel good. And overall, you know what I mean? My day just went from being really good, and I'm riding high on this cloud, and next thing you know, boom, I get struck down by lightning, and I'm on the way home just devastated. And it reminded me of the story that I read, one of the stories in this book, and that's what I wanted to share with you guys. And let me get these glasses on, and I'll read the story to you because it's not very long, but then we'll go back and elaborate on my experience, how I intertwine it with the story. Okay. This is called. It's called Ritual, Kintsugi for Your Heart. In the 15th century, Japan's shogun Ashikaga Yoshimasa accidentally dropped his favorite tea bowl, shattering it into small pieces. Devastated, he sent it to a repair shop. When Yoshimasa received his prized possession back, he was horrified to find the pieces had been stapled together. The bowl was functional again, but the parts were now joined with ugly metal brackets. In a last-ditch effort, Yoshimasa asked a local artist to come up with a solution that would return the bowl back to its natural beauty. When the artist brought it back to Yoshimasa, the cracks were no longer hidden or stapled. Instead, they were highlighted with a visible golden lacquer. Lovely minerals now branched through the bowl like the stems of a beautiful plant. The shogun was so delighted by the results that word of this new technique spread through the land. Eventually, it expanded into an art form and a philosophy called Kintsugi, which means golden repair. Kintsugi came to stand for celebrating the beauty of brokenness in art and in life, because embracing imperfection can lead to something more beautiful. Have you ever heard the word pronoia? It's the opposite of paranoia, whereas paranoia is the belief that the world is conspiring against you. Pronoia is the feeling that the world is conspiring for you. Pronoia is the foundation of Kintsugi, because instead of resisting the cracks, you acknowledge and accept and even embrace them, because you believe that the brokenness of the moment is leading to something stronger and more beautiful down the line. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as post-traumatic growth, whereas resilience is the ability to bounce back from a negative event. Post-traumatic growth is the ability to develop from it, to come back even stronger. The difference between resilience and growth depends entirely on how you treat yourself when things go wrong. The next time something harmful happens, try practicing what I call Kintsugi for your heart. Instead of quickly stapling the pieces back together and moving on, taking enough time to trace your fingers over the broken parts. Examine them with compassion and curiosity and explore the wisdom they offer. With patience, lacquer the pieces back together, proudly wearing those seams like a warrior wears their scars. Man, I get chills just reading that story, man, and I'm just to hear something like that somebody felt a certain way because something happened, and then felt a different way when something else happened, you know what I mean, with that same event, you know what I mean? And to understand that whole story and what's behind it, and to know that somebody was feeling like that back in ancient times, you know what I mean? People were going through things that people are still going through today. You know what I mean? In the here and now. And just in different scenarios, different events. And for me, failing that test, man, I was just like, so, it got me, it really, it made me sad. I felt disappointed. And when I was on the way home, I remembered that story, and I decided to get the book out and read it again. And man, after I read it again, and, I started kind of like it said, going back into what made you feel like that and see what it is that you could, possibly do better. Possibly, maybe it was something that you need to fix within yourself, or maybe it's just a different path that you have to take. It could be a variety of things, but the point is to indulge in what that event is, what indulge in other words, being grateful for the adversity. Because you can, people are grateful all the time, but they're just grateful for the things that happen that are good. You know what I mean? If something good's happening, you're going to be grateful, obviously, right? But when bad things are happening, people are not so grateful then. But why? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you be? And, it takes me back to my days in addiction. If I had gone through a feeling like that, where I felt sad and just disappointed, I would have immediately went to my go-to, And for me, that was using drugs. For me, that was smoking meth. And I would have immediately went and done that, because that would have masked the feelings that I learned when I was in the first grade, when I drank my first drink of alcohol and smoked my first marijuana cigarette. You know what I mean? I was in the first grade when I did that. And I knew at an early age that this kind of stuff masked those feelings, and I wouldn't feel hurt. I wouldn't feel sad. You know what I mean? So to be able to feel those feelings and not do something that was going to just further bound me down into a sadness, a depressed feeling, but to know that I have the free will, that I had the wisdom that I got from adversities that I've gone through, that now I know that right away, the way I've been living my life, the first thing that popped into my head was that story. You know, how grateful am I for that? You know what I mean? That I was able to remember a story like that, of an adversity that someone got out of, you know what I mean? And because I read that story again, I immediately got back up into where I was, you know, in sync with my energy levels, with my dharma, if you will, you know, with the essence of what I'm trying to do in my life, you know what I mean? And, you know, I'm just grateful that I was able to savor, I guess, the adversity, if you will, because sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to get into the trenches, you know what I mean? Sometimes there's no other way out but to do that, you know what I mean? And I know that, you know, there people go through adversities that they can be from worse things to taking a test and failing it, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, the adversity is still an adversity, and the feeling is still the same, no matter how big the adversity is. It could be small, and it could be major. But if you feel sad, there's only one sad. You know what I mean? There's not different levels of sadness. You know what I mean? There's not different levels of, you know, of depression. If you're depressed, you're depressed. If you're sad, you're sad. You know what I mean? Bottom line. But to be able to have the free will and the knowledge, the wisdom, to understand the adversity, and to embrace the adversity, and to remember something like a little story like that just totally changed the way I felt and got me back to where I was. You know what I mean? It is, to me, that's beautiful. I mean, I'm just grateful that I'm able to that I had a story like that I could come back to, you know what I mean? And I just thought that was a really, you know, to me it was inspiring that I was able to do that. You know what I mean? Because if you would have caught me 2 years ago taking a test, failing, and feeling like this, there's no way I would have been thinking about a book. You know what I mean? I would have been thinking straight up, boom, let me go get some drugs and take care of this feeling right away, because I know that's what takes care of the feeling. You know what I mean? Not reading some story in a book. But gosh, to have a 360-degree change in mentality like that is just amazing to me. And, you know, it just goes to show you that, you know, if you're in an adversity, if you're in that stronghold, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean? If you do something every day, repetitively, to get to that positive note, you know what I mean? It works, because I'm living proof that it works, because I've been doing it. And by no means is it an easy road sometimes, but, you know, because you're going to have days that you're going to feel sad and depressed and lonely, because I I started getting into that little bowl of self pity, if you will, and I started cooking up a storm there, and I just had to get my mind focused back in on something that I remembered, and I'm grateful for that. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I thought it was encouraging, you know what I mean, um, to read a story like that and for this person, guy who was this this high figure in Japan back then, and he breaks his favorite, bowl, and then they bring it back, and he's devastated. You know what I mean? Who knows? Maybe that's a bowl that his grandfather gave him, or his dad, or his mother. That something that was really near and dear to his heart, and he just sees it in these million pieces, and he's just shattered. I can imagine the feeling. You know what I mean? And to especially to have it brought back, and then to see it in just such this weird and ugly shape now, but it's still functional. You know what I mean? And, and to me, that reminds me that at the end of the day, I'm still an addict. You know what I mean? And you know, the road to recovery may not be all roses. You know what I mean? We're broken down people. You know what I mean? We have a disease, and and for me, it's a neurological, brain disease of, addiction, of post-traumatic experiences, childhood traumatic experiences, anger, depression, sadness, that sort of thing, and to know that just because you're broken into little pieces, that there's still that lacquer, that golden lacquer that you can just, brace over yourself and just to shower yourself with that golden lacquer. And for me, that's being showered with my higher power, with my energy fields, with my with Mother Earth, with just this whole aura of positive and spiritual energy. You know what I mean? And to it said there that now you can walk proudly as this warrior. There at that end of that chapter, it said that you can walk proudly, that you've faced these adversities, and now you're doing something great, and you got this lacquer of this golden lacquer of just this positive energy now. You know what I mean? And for me, the reminders for me are I worded this thing, you know what I mean? And this thing has these little tags, you know what I mean? And these tags, let me see if you can see that. See, that's an ANA tag. It's a Narcotics Anonymous tag, and it has in the back of it, it says clean and serene for 9 months. And this one I got when I was 9 months clean. And you see that there? And for me, that is the golden lacquer. You know what I mean? That is that golden lacquer that I'm wearing proudly. You know what I mean? I wear those things proudly. That, man, you know what? Yeah, I got this because I was 9 months clean. You know how hard that is for somebody like me, who has all these character defects. You know what I mean? And it's just amazing to be able to wear them proudly and to sit here and do a video. You know what I mean? And share my strengths, hope, and my experiences with you guys. You know what I mean? And I was feeling really bad earlier today because I failed that test. But you know what, man? I feel great right now. I'm happy. You know what I mean? Yeah, I failed the test, but you know what? I talked to the instructor and I get another shot at it. You know what I mean? Go figure. And all I got to do is study a little more. Maybe take a tutoring session and I'll go take it again on Monday or Tuesday. And I'm more than sure. I'm confident that I'll pass it. But it's just something that I wanted to share with you guys, and hopefully it's inspiring for somebody. Especially the story that we read out of the book, man. That was great. But at any rate, I just hope that you guys are really having a blessed afternoon. I'm kind of late putting up my video today because of school and stuff, but nonetheless, I made it a promise to myself that I would try to put a video up every single day. So that's why I do them. And hopefully that I can help somebody and share, and hopefully this story, hits somebody today right here, and maybe it helps you out and moving forward and feeling happy. You know what I mean? It's not the end of the world, man. And all you got to do is pick up the pieces sometimes, and it may not look pretty when you pick up the pieces. But just move forward with that for a little bit, and guarantee you that you'll get that golden lacquer all over you, and you'll be shining, man. I promise you that, because I know that's how I feel. And but anyway, I guess that's gonna be it for today, man. I hope that you guys really enjoyed the video podcast and the story. And if you would, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share my channel. Just know that when you do hit that subscribe button and share my channel, you'll be helping out another veteran, another person dealing with homelessness, another person dealing with PTSDs, childhood traumatic experience, drug and alcohol addiction, sadness, depression, suicidal thoughts, my friends, because I have personally dealt with all those things. And, I just am glad and grateful to my higher power and to, Mother Earth that I'm able to share a message with you guys today. And I hope that you guys have a blessed day, and blessed rest of the day, and a good weekend. So I guess until the next time, when the smoke clears, I am the recovery plug.